Now, what man could go past beer, bangers and bacon? I think I've got a winner here. Now, this is going to be just a little bit of, say, a posh take on bangers and mash. I have sausages from Ormiston, free-range organic pork, as well as some of their streaky bacon, which I'll wrap around the sausages just to add a savoury note to beautiful, sweet, really good quality pork meat. Potatoes, which I'll cut up after I've peeled them, of course, and then into the pot. Now, a tip while we're here at this stage is to cover your potatoes with cold water. By covering them with cold water, you'll actually bring the whole pot to the same temperature at the same time, rather than some bits then cooking unevenly and going a bit mushy. You get other parts going not so well cooked, and then there'll be the lumpy bits that you find. So cold water to start, let that be a rule of thumb. While we're here at Oakfield, I'm going to use some of Belinda's dried Kalamata olives to mix through the mash. They're a great companion with Shiraz. Shiraz, despite the fruit, can also have earthy tones as well too. So this will be something there, another layer to add to our meal when we're companioning it with the wine. Now, the other little twist to finish off this meal is an onion jam, which, you know, it's fairly simple to make. You can make it with water, you can make it with wine. Well, we're going to make it with beer today. I've been to the Mudgee Brewing Company. Now, porter is a deeper, earthier kind of beer, a bit more malty than you'd find with your normal run-of-the-mill beers. And why not? We're here in Mudgee, let's grab something else to put in the jam. I've asked for the bacon to be finely sliced, not quite as finely as prosciutto, but nearing there. Now, you know, take your time with wrapping these, but don't be too particular. It just can go around. Essentially, when it's being cooked, the bacon will actually hug the sausage anyway. Now, as these are very good quality sausages, there's a lot of meat in them and not a great deal of fat, so they can tend to dry out a little bit, which is why I like to bake them, so they can sit in some moisture, as opposed to cooking on the barbecue where they will drain. The bacon's going to add a little bit as well, because they're obviously, with streaky bacon, is more fat on that, so that will hold and add some moisture as well. These are going to go into a baking dish, and we're actually just coating that with some olive oil, and then when I put each sausage in, just roll it around in that oil. It will create a lot of its own juice with the fat from the bacon as well. Oven on 180 degrees, just a good standard moderate oven, and we're looking at, say, half an hour to cook. Don't overcook really good quality sausages because they actually will dry out. Now, I've started with a warm pan and added to that a little bit of butter. I'm also going to add some olive oil. I'm using the butter because it's just going to enhance that lovely buttery sweetness that onions have when they're cooked through, rather than just using straight olive oil or straight butter for that matter, which sometimes can lead to burning. So I'll take the onions, which I've sliced fairly thinly, and then some of these red bunching onions from Belinda's garden. So we'll add those to the pan. Now, my aim with this is not to actually brown them. I just want to pretty much sweat them off, but just with a little bit more depth to them. If I get them too brown, then that's just going to take away from the essence of the jam, and we've got enough depth because we're actually putting the beer into it as well. These are sweated down beautifully. So basically you're looking for a translucent onion rather than one that's starting to brown. Now, at this stage, I'm just going to add a little bit of salt to it. Once again, the pink salt, a nice subtle salt. I'm adding it now just so that the onions can take up a bit of that flavour as well, rather than just seasoning purely at the end. I find this way the onion can take up some salt before you actually add the beer. So mix that through. Now we'll add the beer. Don't quite cover the onions, just add probably, say, to fill halfway up them. If you add too much beer, then you're actually then starting to deal with too much liquid. You need to add more sugar. It's easier to start with a little amount at first. To add brown sugar. Now we'll give you an approximate here. I'm going to add roughly, say, 1 cup to 1 1/4. But it's neither here nor there really. Mix that through. And then I'll add some fresh thyme from the garden. Thyme adds savoury notes to foods as well. Rather than saying a herb like oregano, that brings out sweeter notes. So that's in, and then we'll add our lemon, just to pull the pectin out and help finish the whole dish up. And then I think it just needs probably a tiny bit of pepper. I'll allow this to come to the simmer and then let that bubble away, probably for up to about half an hour. Please stir at regular intervals. You are working with sugar and sugar sticks. I haven't worked too much with quantities in this regard. Just taste as you go. Essence is to reduce the liquid until it becomes a bit thicker like jam, starts to toffee up just slightly, and then we'll just coat the sausages perfectly. Okay, our potatoes are cooked. I've given them a mash with a masher for a little bit just to get the lumps out with some butter, salted butter, and also some fresh cream. Now, fresh cream will give you a much lighter, fluffier mash. You can use milk if you want, of course, and cut down the fat, but fat means flavour, so I think up the ante for this one. And once you've actually used the masher, I like to give it a good beat with a wooden spoon. Now basically what's happened when you're using the masher, you're absolutely mashing the magunti out of it, so all the air's coming out. But if you then take the wooden spoon and give it a good whisk and a beat, you're actually putting air back into it, so you'll have a fluffier mash that way. So we've got the cream through, and then add a wee bit of seasoning. So once again, sprinkle of salt. We've already got some salt from the butter, a little bit of pepper, and then also, as mentioned much earlier, we have the Kalamata olives, the dried Kalamatas from Belinda's, which I've actually just chopped really finely. Now, it doesn't matter how finely you chop or don't chop them. So we'll just beat that through. And there we have our lovely fluffy mash with the finely diced dried Kalamata olives. Just get normal Kalamatas that have been in brine, preferably, not oil, and put them in the oven on a cake rack and just dry them on 120, 150 degrees, and keep watching them over an hour or so, and that will take the moisture out, and then you'll have dried Kalamata or any other olives for that matter, really. Okay, we're going to finish off the last component of our meal now, which is just sautéing the rocket. Hot pan, olive oil. The beauty of this is actually the Oakfield olive oil, the finish of that actually has a similarity with the pepperiness to rocket, so they both come across on a plane like this. Fresh rocket, just use this as you would baby spinach or silver beet. And it's also another good thing, you don't have to have the freshness of rocket for sautéing this off either. If you've got some salad in the fridge that's getting a little bit poorly, that's fine to cook up. Rather than throwing it out, why not cook it and serve it for dinner as your green? This does not take very long. It's in, melt it slightly, and then off. We still want to keep a vibrant, fresh colour. Nothing like you'd find back in the early 1900s that nanas overcooked the spinach as well. So straight in, and then we just turn it over. It's best to keep moving it around. If you leave it on the one spot, this actually will burn quite quickly, and as well as not looking that great, the burnt rocket doesn't taste that good on it. So as you can see, it's starting to come down rather quickly now. We'll just get rid of what you would call the raw looking bits. You can add a little bit of seasoning, especially salt, helps to keep the colour, but just brings out the other flavours in as well too. I'm not actually going to add any pepper to this, it's already got its own pepperiness. If you're serving this with something else, say you might be serving it with an osso buco and mash, you might be serving it alongside a roast, a little squeeze of lemon's a nice touch as well too. I think that's done, and now we're ready to plate up.